What if fuel made from plants could end foreign oil dependence and harmful emissions? But hold on, more than likely you do pump ethanol into your car's tank, and of course ethanol is made from plants, primarily corn. Sounds like a great alternative to gas, right? Well, the use of corn to run cars does sound perfect. My thorough investigation reveals that corn ethanol is not a viable alternative. So informed drivers must arm themselves with the truths and consequences of ethanol, and thus it is imperative to learn the truth about ethanol in the tank. Its overall cost and effectiveness, its energy-intensive production, and its negative impact on the environment. First, when considering ethanol as an alternative fuel, the cost is staggering. Ethanol delivers less, and its cost is deflected onto the taxpayers. While ethanol per gallon is typically cheaper than gas, in miles per gallon, ethanol falls short because vehicles fueled with the ethanol get less gas mileage. In fact, according to fueleconomy.gov, ethanol delivers 3 to almost 30% fewer miles per gallon. These figures by the U.S. Department of Energy vary according to the petrol-ethanol ratio. Ethanol can be 10, 15, or 85% ethanol. The worst gas mileage is obviously obtained with the highest blend of ethanol. So clearly, more ethanol in the tank means fewer miles down the road, but the cost doesn't end here. Ethanol is also more costly to produce than regular gas. In fact, according to Jerry Taylor and Peter Doran, prominent authorities in the economic policy and regulation, corn ethanol costs several times more per gallon to produce than petrol. Why then are ethanol prices typically lower? Well, well-documented research by the experts at taxpayers.forthecommonsense.net reveals that question, or answers that question. Since the 1970s, federal government intervention has propped up the ethanol industry with tens and billions of taxpayer dollars in subsidies and loans, as well as an ongoing government mandate to require its use in our fuel. Considering this extreme burden on the taxpayers, ethanol just costs too much. With degraded gas mileage and high production costs passed on to the taxpayers, ethanol leaves fewer dollars in the wallet while delivering fewer miles on every fill-up. Moving on to the next consequence of ethanol. The second truth of ethanol exposes ethanol production as an excessive resource hog. Resting on a foundation of fossil fuels and water nullifies ethanol as a good energy choice. While proponents argue that ethanol will reduce fossil fuel dependency, the reality is that its production still requires excessive amounts of these resources. In his article in Scientific American, energy investigator Matthew Wald reports that manufacturing ethanol is fossil fuel intensive. From clearing the land, growing, fertilizing, harvesting, distilling, and hauling, ethanol requires massive amounts of natural gas, coal, and diesel. Wald notes that though ethanol is praised as a farm product, it is still primarily a fossil fuel product. In addition, the production of ethanol is water intensive. A report by the U.S. Department of Energy's Argonne National Laboratory reveals that producing 1 gallon of corn ethanol requires from 10 to 324 gallons of water. And producing 1 gallon of gasoline only requires from 3 to 6 gallons of water. Requiring excessive amounts of the resources that is meant to replace, and water, an invaluable and dwindling resource for life, ethanol is neither the intelligent or practical choice. And practical as an energy source, ethanol production is not an efficient use of our energy resources. In the book Biofuels by John Tabak, PhD, the efficiency of ethanol is examined in terms of net energy balance. It is the ratio of energy output to energy input. Using this formula, ethanol has not proven its worth, and according to Tabak, ethanol is not an efficient use of our energy input resources. In fact, according to the U.S. Department of Energy, ethanol delivers 33% less energy than regular gasoline. Considering its excessive use of our resources and negative net energy balance, ethanol has a dubious worth as a fuel source, but depleting our valuable resources is just the beginning. The third truth is that ethanol endangers the environment and thereby all life. Burning and producing ethanol has profound ecological impacts. While proponents argue that plant-based fuel should be environmentally friendly, the truth is actually the exact opposite. Ethanol contributes significantly to greenhouse emissions. After all, ethanol production is fossil fuel dependent. Consequently, CO2 and other greenhouse gases are released throughout the entire process and production and transport of the ethanol. In fact, according to Matthew Wald in his article for Scientific American, the ethanol production requires almost equal amounts of greenhouse gases as in gasoline production. Furthermore, environmental research by Joseph Fergoni of the Nature Conservancy indicated that clearing land for farming naturally releases CO2. And the increased clearing of the land for the corn farming has produced and will continue to produce significant amounts of CO2 in decades forward and even centuries forward. This puts the CO2 emissions way over the top when compared to gasoline production. Even more alarming, experts in agricultural policy, products and economics, Robin Johnson and C. Ford Runge, indicate that ethanol emissions release carcinogen acetaldehyde. Without question, burning ethanol is like jumping from the frying pan into the fire, but the negative impacts on the environment do not stop here. Increasing corn production for ethanol has increased the use of nitrogen-rich fertilizer. As a result, according to a report by the Union of Concerned Scientists, corn farming is the leading cause of pollution in the Midwestern states, contaminating groundwater, streams, lakes, and rivers. The nitrogen-rich runoff makes its way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Science writer Carol Patola reveals the extent of the problem in her article in Environmental Health Perspectives. She reports that the excessive nitrogen causes algae to flourish. Then as the bacteria breaks down the algae, it consumes all the oxygen in the water. And the result is a dead zone the size of New Jersey and the degradation of marine life. Offering negligible benefit, ethanol damages the environment and poses a threat to human well-being. Indeed, ethanol is costly. In summary, intended as an alternative fuel, ethanol falls short in energy output. The truths and consequences of ethanol reveals lower fuel economy, excessive expenditures in dollars and resources, and the degradation of the environment. Planning a trip to the gas pump? Be aware, that's not just gas you're pumping.